Today, I want to talk about the philosophy behind the Rizzler and why this interview matters so much. At a first glance, this interview is internet slop. A 10-year-old meme celebrity sits in a fake restaurant talking about school lunches, Geometry Dash, Costco, Gatorade, and YouTube Shorts. Nothing appears meaningful. Yet somehow, thousands watched the interview and came away feeling strangely emotional. Why? Because underneath the jokes is something that has become increasingly rare online. Someone who hasn't yet learned how to fake authenticity. The internet is full of carefully manufactured personalities. People optimize themselves, they build brands, they craft identities. Every sentence is designed to maximize engagement. The Rizzler doesn't do any of that. He simply answers questions. Ironically, that honestly ends up revealing truths that philosophers have spent thousands of years trying to explain. Identity exists before labels. The interview literally begins with identity. What does Rizzler stand for? He answers nonchalantly: respect, intelligence, xylophone, zing, life, extract, and rewind. Obviously, it's nonsense, but notice something interesting. He's never trying to give the correct answer. He's just playing. Children understand something adults often forget. Names don't create identity. People give names meaning. Adults often reverse this. People spend years trying to become their title. Doctor, Grandmaster, CEO, influencer, content creator, professional. The Rizzler accidentally flips that relationship. The title itself is meaningless. The person wearing it gives the title meaning. This is remarkably similar to existential philosophy. Jean-Paul argued existence precedes essence. This basically means you are not born with a fixed identity. You create yourself through living. The Rizzler isn't trying to explain what Rizzler means. He's demonstrating that the word itself hardly matters. People made it famous, not the letters. Fame is something that happened to him. One of the biggest themes throughout the interview is how passive his relationship with fame is. When asked about growing his career, he just said, "I'll just be myself, and it just happens." Read that again. "I'll just be myself, and it just happens." There's no strategy, no algorithm, no optimization, no marketing, no discussion of content, no grind mentality. Contrast this with almost every influencer interview ever. "I studied analytics, I posted every day, I built my brand." The Rizzler just says, "I'll be myself, and I'll let the road carry me." Whether or not that's literally the whole story doesn't matter. It's how he conceptualizes success. That mindset echoes Taoism. Lao Tzu describes Wu Wei: effortless action, doing without forcing. The strongest rivers don't struggle to flow. They simply follow their course. The Rizzler almost embodies that idea. He's not chasing fame, he's floating with it. Authenticity cannot be manufactured. One reason people love him is because he doesn't appear to know what the audience wants. Ironically, that becomes exactly what the audience wants. There's a paradox here. The harder someone tries to appear authentic, the less authentic they become. Authenticity cannot be intentionally performed forever. The moment authenticity becomes strategy, it becomes performance. The Rizzler hasn't crossed that line. He still exists before his performance. This connects to Heidegger's idea of authenticity. Most people become trapped in the they. We begin living according to what people expect, what society rewards, what gets likes, what gets promoted. The Rizzler still answers like someone who hasn't completely entered that world. Fame creates mirrors. The most heartbreaking moment may be when he talks about his friends. He says, "There was this kid in my school that never talked to me. Then," he says, "when I became the Rizzler, he wanted to hang out." This is profound. Success didn't suddenly create fake people. Success revealed who was already fake. Imagine a mirror. Before success, everyone looks the same. And after success, people begin reflecting themselves. Some reflect envy, some opportunity, some admiration, some genuine happiness, and some with human selflessness, greed. Fame becomes less of a spotlight and more of a mirror. Philosophers often argued that wealth doesn't corrupt. It reveals. Money doesn't make someone greedy, it gives greed more opportunities. Fame doesn't make someone fake, it exposes people who already were. Friendship without utility. This might be the most philosophical center of the interview. His perfect friend is someone who, quote, "doesn't care that I'm famous." This sentence contains an entire theory of friendship. Aristotle believed there were three kinds of friendship: friendships of pleasure, utility, and virtue. Pleasure: we enjoy each other's company. Utility: we benefit each other. And virtue: we love each other for who we are. The Rizzler unknowingly describes Aristotle's highest friendship, not someone who benefits from him, not someone who impresses him, or is impressed by him, but someone who simply likes him. Imagine hearing that from a child. It's beautiful. Now we get to the heart of everything. The homeless person answer. This has been floating around online, and I figured let's try and do a deep dive of it. If you could switch lives with anybody, who would it be? Most kids would answer LeBron, Mr. Beast, Ronaldo, Batman, the President. Instead, he asked a person. He answered yes. And the Rizzler said a homeless person. The interviewer is visibly surprised. No explanation follows, and that's what makes it fascinating. There's many interpretations, so we'll go with interpretation 1. Radical empathy. He wants experience, not information. Modern society often teaches sympathy, feeling bad. Empathy goes further than that. It's feeling with. The Rizzler doesn't say, "I feel bad for homeless people." He imagines becoming one. That leap requires imagination. Interpretation 2 is gratitude. Humans normalize comfort. Running water, electricity, beds, parents, foods. After enough time, they become invisible. Experience absolute lack would force appreciation. This echoes Stoic exercises. Seneca occasionally wore poor clothing and ate simple food, not because he was poor, but to remind himself that his comforts weren't guaranteed. The point wasn't suffering, it was perspective. And now we come to interpretation 3. Compassion through sacrifice. This is your interpretation, and I think it's I think it adds a beautiful layer. If lives were truly swapped, then for one day, the homeless person would receive a family, a warm bed, recognition, food, love, presence, and safety. The Rizzler is willing to temporarily lose everything just for one person to have everything. It's almost Christ-like in structure, not because he gains anything, but because someone else does. It's compassion expressed through exchange rather than charity. And then we come to interpretation 4, curiosity. Children possess something adults slowly lose: curiosity without fear. Adults instinctively avoid imagining suffering. Children sometimes ask, what would that actually be like? Not out of cruelty, but out of wonder. Happiness is simpler than adults think. Perfect summer day, ice pop, that's it. No yacht, no Ferrari, no private island, just an ice pop. This resembles Epicurus. Epicurus argued happiness isn't maximizing pleasure, it's minimizing unnecessary desire. Adults often imagine happiness requires accumulation. Children often find it in ordinary moments: an ice pop, a sunny day, listening to music, swimming. Those aren't lesser joys. They may actually be the greater ones. Paris isn't geography. When asked, Paris or Spain, he says Paris. Why? Because, and I quote, it's Paris. Adults would explain culture, language, economics, healthcare, tourism. They would explain all sorts of things, and he doesn't. Paris exists as an idea. Children experience symbols before analysts. Paris represents possibilities: romance, adventure, beauty. Sometimes meaning matters more than practicality. Context is everything. Pretzels or popcorn? He refuses the false dilemma. Instead, what occasion? This tiny answer demonstrates contextual thinking. Nothing is universally best. Everything depends. Is it movies? Then popcorn. If it's a road trip, then pretzels. If it's at your house, then it depends. That's Aristotle's doctrine of practical wisdom. Good judgment isn't memorizing rules, it's recognizing content. Leadership isn't complicated. If you were principal, he doesn't say better curriculum, policy reform, budget improvements. He says Gatorade in the water fountains. Adults laugh, but think about it. Leadership begins by asking, what small thing would make everyone's day better? Not even leader could change that. Not every leader could change that. Because most leaders could never think about that. No one would. Not every leader changes history. Some simply improve daily lives. Honesty isn't absolute. When discussing lying, he says, I tell white lies to help my friends. This introduces a moral conflict: truth versus loyalty. Every ethical system eventually encounters a situation where virtues collide. He's already wrestling with that tension. Without realizing it, he's participating in one of philosophy's oldest debates: the absence of ambition. What were you passionate about? I don't know. This answer deserves admiration. Modern culture pressures children to define themselves early. What's your dream? What's your purpose? What's your passion? The Rizzler simply emits uncertainty, and that honestly is healthier than false certainty. Wonder before efficiency. Throughout the interview, everything is approached with curiosity. Geometry dash, crayons, ice cream, drawing, the school play. None of these are productive. They're meaningful because they're enjoyable. Modern adulthood often replaces wonder with efficiency. Children remind us those aren't the same thing. The final irony. Perhaps the greatest philosophical insight is one the interview never says outright. Millions know him as the Rizzler. Yet throughout the interview, he barely talks about being famous. Instead, he talks about homework, school, friends, drawing, geometry dash, art class, and lunch. That's who he actually is. The meme exists in our minds. The child exists in reality. And maybe that's the lesson hidden beneath all the jokes. We spend so much of our lives worrying about the identities the world gives us, our job title, our reputation, our follower count, our accomplishments, that we forget the quieter things that actually make up life. The Rizzler's fame is what makes people click on the interview, but it isn't what makes the interview memorable. What lingers afterward is the image of a kid excited about an ice pop, grateful for a Lego set, trying to figure out who his real friends are, and wondering what it would be like to walk in someone else's shoes. Without intending to, he demonstrates a truth that many philosophical traditions arrive at from different directions. A meaningful life is rarely built from extraordinary moments alone. It is built from ordinary moments lived honestly. Fame may amplify a person's voice, but it doesn't necessarily define their identity. Authenticity, gratitude, curiosity, empathy, and genuine human connection endure long after the novelty of internet celebrity fades. The interview is funny because it's absurd. It's memorable because it's sincere. And in an era where sincerity is often performed rather than lived, that may be the most philosophical lesson of all.